The video is only 14 seconds long, but it's already flipped everything upside down. Because in those 14 seconds, King Harris, T.I.'s son, did something so reckless, so disrespectful, so deeply personal that even people who normally don't agree with 50 Cent are saying the same thing. He crossed a line you don't come back from. This wasn't trolling, it wasn't clout chasing, it wasn't some viral joke gone wrong. This was something else entirely. The footage shows King Harris standing inside a cemetery, but not just any cemetery, the exact resting place of 50 Cent's mother, Sabrina Jackson. And he's not there in silence, he's not there with respect, he's not there reflecting. He's laughing, pointing, joking, treating the graves like props in some twisted social media moment, like the dead are part of the entertainment. At one point, he leans into the camera and says, "Y'all legends ain't that legendary to me." And just like that, the internet stopped. No jokes, no memes, no confusion. Just silence followed by shock. Because in that moment, King didn't just disrespect a celebrity. He disrespected a mother, a murdered mother, a trauma 50 Cent has spoken about for his entire life as the moment that shaped everything he became. And the second that video reached 50 Cent, everything shifted. Sources say he watched it once, then again, then went completely still. No yelling, no rant, no instant reaction. Just silence. And people who know 50 Cent say that's the scariest version of him. Because when 50 goes quiet, it's not peace. It's calculation. One insider put it bluntly. He didn't just do that. And that was it. No further explanation needed. Because now everyone understood. This wasn't something you laugh off. This wasn't something you respond to online. This wasn't even normal celebrity drama anymore. This was personal. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because King Harris wasn't just acting on impulse. Behind the scenes, there was influence. A bigger name. An older figure with a long, bitter history with 50 Cent. Someone who never let their past with him die. Someone who allegedly guided King's energy, fed him confidence, and pointed him toward exactly where to go. Not for fun, not for content, but for impact. And that's what makes this situation so dangerous. Because King didn't grow up in chaos, he grew up protected, watched, guided, given every opportunity most kids could only imagine. But somewhere along the way, that protection turned into pressure. And pressure turned into identity confusion. He didn't want to be just T.I.'s son. He wanted to be feared. He wanted respect that couldn't be given, only taken. And that desire pushed him into spaces he never should have been in, older circles, louder voices, men who didn't see him as a young man at all, but as leverage, a piece in a much bigger game. They told him he had to prove something, that he had to make a moment the world couldn't ignore. And unfortunately, he did exactly that. But what King didn't understand is that in that world, attention isn't respect. And viral moments aren't protection. Especially not when you step into the most sensitive wound of a man like 50 Cent. Because 50's mother wasn't just family. She was his foundation. The one person who shaped his entire survival story. The loss that hardened him. The pain that built him. Everything he became came from that wound. So when someone walks into her resting place, laughing, recording, disrespecting her memory, it's not just an insult. It's a trigger buried deep inside everything he is. And now the internet is frozen on one question. Was this a reckless mistake? 50 Cent didn't see King Harris as just a reckless celebrity kid in that moment. He saw something far more personal, a direct violation of his mother's memory. And that's a line even people who openly dislike 50 Cent understand you don't cross. This wasn't a diss track, this wasn't internet trolling, and it definitely wasn't harmless attention-seeking. In his eyes, it was something deeper. Something closer to spiritual disrespect, like a boundary that shouldn't exist being completely erased in real time. What makes it even more disturbing is the growing belief that King Harris didn't fully understand what he was stepping into. According to people close to the situation, he wasn't acting alone in his thinking. He had been influenced, pushed, even coached by older voices in the industry who knew exactly how to shape his emotions. They framed it as confidence, as power, as proving yourself. Words like "this is how you get attention," "this is how you show you're not scared," and "this is how you separate yourself from your father's shadow," allegedly became the mindset feeding his actions. Behind the scenes, King had reportedly been surrounded by individuals who saw him less as a young artist and more as a tool, an easy spark, a famous last name attached to impulsive energy and a constant need for validation. To them, he wasn't so. Mion to guide, he was someone to activate, and that's where everything started slipping out of control. While T.I. and Tiny were trying to pull him back towards stability, calm him down, and remind him of consequences, King kept pulling away further into this hardened persona he thought would earn him respect. Every warning was dismissed as hate, every concern was labeled as fear, and every attempt to ground him only pushed him deeper into proving a point. Then the cemetery video changed everything, not just because of what was said, but because of where it happened. That location wasn't random, it wasn't public knowledge, it wasn't something someone just stumbles into, meaning someone had to guide him there. Someone had to give him direction. Someone had to shape the moment itself. And once 50 Cent saw it, it reportedly clicked instantly for him. This didn't feel like random disrespect. It felt directed, influenced, orchestrated by someone who understood exactly which emotional nerve to press. From that point, the situation stopped being simple internet drama. It turned into something far more calculated. Because 50 Cent is not known for reacting emotionally to chaos, but he is known for identifying patterns, motivations, and the people behind them. And if there is one thing he does not ignore, it's when someone tries to weaponize another person against him. That's where the focus quietly shifted away from King and toward whoever was pulling the strings in the background. Inside the Harris household, everything collapsed the moment the footage surfaced. T.I. reportedly reacted with pure disbelief and rage, not as an artist, but as a father realizing the severity of what had just been done. The anger wasn't about public embarrassment. It was about consequences he understood better than anyone else. That certain lines in this world don't just cause backlash, they create retaliation. Tiny was emotional, family members were shaken, and the entire environment turned tense as everyone tried to process how quickly things had spiraled. And while T.I. was trying to reach King, King wasn't answering. He wasn't explaining anything. He wasn't backing down either. Instead, he was allegedly still being fed more messages, more encouragement, more pressure, from someone telling him to double down, to escalate, to make the moment unforgettable. To him, it felt like validation, like guidance, like someone finally understanding the version of himself he was trying to become. But the reality underneath it all was much darker. King wasn't operating in isolation, and he wasn't the mastermind of anything unfolding. He was becoming the center of someone else's agenda, someone older, angrier, and far more calculated, who saw him as the perfect vessel to reignite an old industry tension without ever stepping into the fire themselves. And the deeper this influence goes, the clearer it becomes. This was never just about a viral moment. It was about control, manipulation, and a much bigger conflict being quietly reignited through someone who never fully understood the weight of what he was being pushed into. So when this older rapper started pulling King Harris into late-night studio sessions, private parties, and industry conversations, it didn't feel suspicious to King at all. It felt like a rival, like he was finally being taken seriously, like someone in the game was saying, "You belong here." And that's exactly where the manipulation began. Because to King, it wasn't grooming, it was validation. The older voice fed him a story he was already emotionally vulnerable to. You're bigger than your dad, you're the face of a new wave, nobody's doing what you can do right now. Every sentence was designed to hit his ego, especially the part of him that hated being seen as just T.I.'s son. You've got to show them you're fearless, the message went. You've got to do something nobody forgets. You've got to shake the culture. And King believed it fully. People around him later described it like watching someone slowly get pulled into a version of himself that was louder, angrier, and easier to control. Because the man influencing him wasn't mentoring him. He was studying him. He knew exactly what buttons to press: insecurity, pride, frustration, the need to be respected without earning it the hard way. That's why the cemetery idea landed the way it did. It wasn't framed as disrespect. It was framed as legend-making. This is how you become untouchable. This is how you prove you're not scared of anyone. This is how you break the old generation. But what King didn't understand is that he wasn't stepping into fearless energy. He was stepping into one of the most sensitive emotional wounds in hip-hop history. 50 Cent's mother wasn't just a name in a headline. She was the foundation of his entire story, the trauma that shaped everything he became. And the location itself wasn't random either. It wasn't public knowledge. It wasn't ease. Why to find? That alone raised questions later, because someone had to guide him there. Someone had to make sure he knew exactly what he was doing. The moment the video leaked, the internet saw chaos. But behind the scenes, something far more calculated was being exposed in real time. Because leaked screenshots began circulating from what looked like DM exchanges between King and the older rapper. In them, King hesitates, asking if this is really going to work, and the response is cold, confident. Trust me, he won't touch you. He can't afford to look emotional over a kid. Then another message that changed everything. And if he reacts, that's even better. That's when the story stopped looking like stupidity and started looking like strategy. Not clout chasing, not impulse, a setup, a controlled situation designed to force a reaction from 50 Cent, preferably a public one, so it could be spun, clipped, and used to reshape the narrative. And suddenly, a name surfaced. Someone on the edge of the old Murder Inc. orbit. Someone with a long, messy history of industry instigation and unresolved tension with 50 Cent. Someone who had been quiet for years until now. That's when T.I. stepped in fully. When he saw the connection, it reportedly hit him instantly. This wasn't just his son being reckless. This was someone using his son as a proxy in an old war. And when he confronted King, the situation exploded. He's using you, T.I. allegedly told him. This man doesn't care about you. He's trying to start something through you. But King was already locked in emotionally, already invested in the version of himself that had been sold to him. No, he fired back. He believes in me, you just don't see it. And that was the moment everything shifted inside the house, because it wasn't just disagreement anymore. It was influence competing with family. Then came something even more disturbing. Financial traces. Small payments, then larger ones, sent over time from the same source, not labeled as bribes, not labeled as anything obvious, but patterns started to emerge. Money moving in sync with escalating behavior, timing that lined up too cleanly with key moments in the situation. To T.I., it started to look less like rebellion and more like orchestration. Not a son acting out, a son being directed. But while chaos was building on one side, something else was happening on the other. 50 Cent wasn't reacting publicly, he was moving quietly. No posts, no interviews, no immediate retaliation. Instead, he was digging. And then, reportedly, he made direct contact with the older figure behind the influence. No intermediaries, no PR buffer, just a private call. Whatever was said in that conversation wasn't made public, but the aftermath was immediate. The man in question allegedly went silent, disappearing from communication for days. And that should have ended it. But it didn't, because 50 Cent received something else. An anonymous message. He's not the only one involved. Look closer at King's circle. That's when the situation stopped being about one influencer and started turning into something bigger. Because now it wasn't just about outside manipulation, it was about proximity, someone close, someone trusted, someone with access. And as 50 Cent began quietly investigating, the picture that started forming wasn't just about a single older rapper pulling strings. It was about a network, a second layer, someone inside King's world who wasn't just watching the situation unfold, but helping shape it from within. Smoke wasn't just in the background anymore. He was the shadow that made the whole situation look accidental when it clearly was. For months, he had been shaping King's mindset piece by piece, feeding him a simple but dangerous narrative, that his father was too polished, that the industry only respects fearlessness, and that the only way to step out of T's shadow was to do something so loud, so irreversible, it couldn't be ignored. In Smoke's ears, it sounded like motivation. In reality, it was manipulation disguised as mentorship. He didn't just suggest ideas, he directed them. The cemetery wasn't random. It wasn't discovered. It was given. Smoke knew the exact significance of that location, knew what it meant to 50 Cent, and knew that crossing that line would trigger something deep and uncontrollable. And still, he led King straight into it. What the world saw as a reckless 14-second clip was actually the final cut of something far more coordinated. Smoke was there the entire time, not just advising, but physically present, camera in hand, shaping the moment frame by frame. The laughter, the commentary, the timing of King's lines, it wasn't spontaneous. It was guided, almost rehearsed, almost like a scene being produced rather than a mistake being made. And it didn't stop there. After the cemetery video went viral, Smoke pushed for escalation. The second recording, the so-called Black Rose moment, wasn't improv said either. He arranged the setup, controlled the environment, and steered King into doing it in front of another emotionally loaded location tied to 50 Cent's past. Every detail, from the route they took to the words King repeated on camera, had been shaped in advance. Even alternate takes existed, proof that this wasn't chaos, it was construction. Behind the scenes, T's household was unraveling as the truth slowly surfaced. When T finally checked King's phone, the illusion cracked. There were pinned locations sent by Smoke, voice notes coaching his tone, Cash App transfers disguised as support, and messages that made everything undeniable. One line stood out more than anything else. "We about to humble a legend. Welcome to the big leagues." That wasn't encouragement, that was orchestration. T reportedly lost control in that moment, realizing his son hadn't just been influenced, he had been used. Not as a collaborator, but as a delivery system. A weapon aimed at someone else's enemy. And King, still insisting it was his idea, didn't fully grasp how deep the setup went. To him, Smoke was validation. To everyone else watching closely, Smoke was the architect. Then the situation escalated again in silence. Evidence surfaced suggesting Smoke wasn't acting alone. He had been coordinating with the same ex-Murder Inc. connected figure who had been circling old 50 Cent tensions for years. Together, they weren't just reacting to King, they were building a sequence. First the cemetery, then the second video, and allegedly a third phase was already in motion. A diss record, partially recorded, with lines aimed directly at 50 Cent, written with heavy outside influence. That's when 50 Cent stepped in privately. No interviews, no posts, no public reaction, just back-channel movement. People close to him say he saw enough to understand the pattern immediately. This wasn't random disrespect, it was structured provocation. And more importantly, it wasn't being driven by a teenager. It was being engineered by adults who knew exactly what they were doing. That realization shifted everything. Because 50 doesn't respond to noise, he responds to intent. And now the intent was clear. Within days, Smoke vanished, phones disconnected, social accounts wiped, known locations abandoned. No explanation, no warning. One moment he was everywhere behind the scenes, the next he was gone. And that disappearance only deepened the paranoia. In this world, people don't just vanish when they're safe. They vanish when they feel exposed. T tried to trace him. No success. King tried calling. No answer. Even the ex-Murder Inc. affiliate linked to the situation stopped posting entirely, as if the entire network had suddenly collapsed in on itself. And that's when the internet caught up to the reality the industry was already whispering about. This was never just about King. It wasn't even just about 50 Cent. It was about a coordinated attempt to reopen an old war using someone young, famous, and emotionally vulnerable as the trigger point. A proxy conflict disguised as internet drama, a setup that almost worked until the paper trail started speaking louder than the video itself. Now, with Smoke gone and the receipts already circulating behind closed doors, voice notes, messages, payments, location data, the focus has completely shifted. Nobody is asking what King did anymore. They're asking who designed it. Because in situations like this, the loudest person on camera is rarely the one in control. It's the person who never appears at all. The moment that fan tweet hit the timeline, everything escalated again. I bet Smoke didn't run. I bet someone told him 50 was looking for him. It was just a sentence, but it landed like a verdict. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Because in hip-hop, there's one unspoken rule everybody understands. If 50 Cent is really looking for you, you don't argue, you don't post, you don't explain. You disappear. And that's exactly what Smoke had done. From that point on, the narrative shifted completely. Blogs stopped calling it King's controversy and started calling it what it was beginning to look like, a coordinated setup. One hip-hop page broke it down bluntly. King was the bait, Smoke was the director, and the ex-Murder Inc. affiliate was the strategist. Not a random moment of clout chasing, but a structured attempt to provoke 50 Cent into reacting publicly. And then the culture weighed in. Snoop Dogg dropped a cryptic warning online, calling out the idea of kids being pulled into grown men's conflicts. No names, just a message, but everybody understood who it was aimed at. Soon after, Meek Mill added fuel to the fire, saying openly that some industry figures needed to be held accountable for manipulating younger artists into chaos they don't understand. Even the commentary world jumped in. Tony Yayo posted under a viral thread with a simple warning that hit harder than anything else. They had woken up something they can't control. That's when the pressure shifted again, this time onto T. For the first time, T broke his silence in a live broadcast. No filters, no PR tone, just raw frustration. He admitted his son had made a mistake, but made it clear the real problem wasn't just King. It was the grown men guiding him into it. His voice sharpened as he spoke about manipulation, about crossing lines, about dragging a mother's memory into entertainment. And then he said it. He would handle those men personally. That one sentence detonated the internet. Suddenly, it wasn't just a scandal. It was being framed as a multi-sided conflict involving legacy artists, old rivalries, and unfinished industry business. Blogs started running wild with titles like T Enters the War and Hip-Hop Civil Conflict Loading. But before anyone could process T's statement, another blow landed. A leaked audio clip surfaced online, allegedly Smoke's voice. In it, the tone was casual, almost dismissive. He talked about 50 Cent like he was just another industry figure past his prime. He called King the future, spoke about visibility, attention, and making a moment. And then came the line that changed everything. King wasn't the main character, he was the tool. The reaction was immediate. Social media didn't just react, it erupted. What had looked like reckless behavior suddenly looked engineered, planned, rehearsed, intentional. Industry voices followed. Boosie Badazz condemned the situation outright, calling it manipulation of a minor for entertainment and attention. Charlamagne Tha God described it even more directly on air, framing it as exploitation disguised as mentorship. Meanwhile, DJ Envy questioned where Smoke even was now, pointing out that disappearance often says more than any statement ever could. Even old industry ghosts started getting pulled in. Mentions of Ja Rule resurfaced across social media after a quickly deleted post sparked speculation, with fans dissecting everything for hidden meaning, connections, and past grudges. Whether relevant or not, the internet turned every name into a suspect. Then came the headline that changed the temperature again. TMZ reported that 50 Cent was quietly gathering evidence. No jokes, no trolling, no social media games, just preparation. And that's when people realized this wasn't heading toward a response, it was heading toward a reckoning. King, meanwhile, posted a short story that only deepened the confusion. They lied on me, I'm not snitching on my people. But the problem was simple, the internet no longer knew who his people even were. Smoke had vanished, the affiliate had gone silent, and the only visible figure left was King, standing in the middle of a collapsing narrative he didn't seem to fully understand. Even Tiny's subtle response made things worse, a quiet acknowledgement that King still didn't have the full picture. Because he didn't. He didn't know Smoke was gone. He didn't know the other side was panicking. He didn't know the industry had started turning on the architects, not the pawn. And then came the final shock of the cycle. An anonymous former Murder Inc. insider dropped a single line online. There was a third person. The internet froze. If Smoke was the director and the affiliate was the strategist, then who was left? Within minutes, speculation exploded again. New names, old rivalries, forgotten industry figures dragged back into the spotlight. Even veteran artists started reacting like they were seeing a story they didn't want reopened. And then 50 Cent ended the silence with 5 words. I know who you are. No explanation, no elaboration, just certainty. That was the moment everything shifted again, because now it wasn't just about what happened. It was about who was about to be exposed next. When the internet had finally convinced itself that King Harris was just a pawn caught between 2 bitter men, the story didn't end, it escalated. Because that's when the third name entered the conversation. Not Smoke, not the Murder Inc. linked affiliate, a third figure, a shadow level above both of them. Someone who didn't need attention, didn't need clout, didn't even need credit. Someone who operated from behind the curtain and had far more to gain from destruction than from fame. It started with a single leaked line from an anonymous former Murder Inc. employee. There's a third person involved. He's the one who started all of this, and he's bigger than both of them. That one sentence flipped the entire internet upside down. Within minutes, timelines exploded. People couldn't even agree on what bigger meant. Bigger in money, bigger in influence, bigger in industry power, or bigger in motive. Then the situation took another turn. A trusted Atlanta insider reportedly called T directly. The message was simple and chilling. Tip, this wasn't 2 men approaching your son, it was 3. Smoke, he said, was just the runner, TH. Murder Inc. connected affiliate was the strategist. But the third man, the real architect, was something else entirely. An investor. And in this world, investor doesn't just mean money. It means access, protection, industry leverage, quiet influence that doesn't show up on credits but decides who gets opportunities and who gets erased. And according to the caller, this investor wasn't interested in music. He wasn't chasing clout. He wasn't chasing relevance. He was chasing payback. Because years ago, he lost something massive, not on the streets, not in rap beef, but in business. A television deal. A project he spent years building collapsed the moment 50 Cent announced his own wave of TV dominance with Power. Networks shifted, investors pulled, the momentum died, and in his mind, only one person stood at the center of it all. 50 Cent. That loss didn't fade, it fermented. And over time, it turned into something personal, something patient. Not a beef, a plan. A long-game attempt to hit 50 where he's most vulnerable. Not money, not fame, but memory, emotion, legacy. The things tied to his mother, Sabrina Jackson, the one part of his life he never turns into a joke. So the idea formed. Two men would apply pressure. One would guide the narrative. And a third would fund the operation from the shadows, waiting for the emotional collapse to play out in public. That's where King came in. Not as a mastermind. Not even as a participant. As leverage. A loud, emotional, validation-seeking young figure. Easy to influence, easy to provoke, easy to push into moments that would go viral without him fully understanding the consequences. And while the internet thought this was spontaneous chaos, it was starting to look more like staged escalation. Then came the twist that changed everything again. 50 Cent reportedly got a private folder. Inside it, messages, voice notes, transaction records, coordination threads, all pointing back to the same hidden investor. And when he opened it, he didn't react like someone discovering something new. He reacted like someone recognizing an old name. Just one line reportedly escaped him. "Oh, it's you." Not shock, not confusion. Recognition. The kind that comes when a long-forgotten debt finally resurfaces. And almost immediately after, his tone shifted publicly. No jokes, no trolling, just a warning that landed like a sentence. Everyone involved is going to be dealt with. That's when panic started spreading behind the scenes. Smoke vanished completely, phones off, accounts wiped, no trace. The affiliate went silent. And the investor, the third man, allegedly shut everything down in real time. Meetings canceled, projects paused, lawyers contacted overnight, damage control in full motion. Because at that point, this was no longer internet drama. It was exposure risk. And then, just when it felt like things had peaked, another clip surfaced. Low quality, night footage, a shaky voice in the background. King Harris saying one line that froze everything. "It's already too late, part 2 is out there." The Black Rose footage. Something that had only been circulating privately. Something someone had clearly leaked ahead of schedule. And suddenly, the question changed again. Not what happened, but who is releasing it next. Because now the internet understands one thing clearly. This isn't a single controversy anymore. It's a chain reaction. A carefully layered conflict involving influence, manipulation, and revenge that stretches far beyond one viral moment. And somewhere behind all of it, someone is still holding the final piece, deciding when to drop it. So now the speculation is louder than ever. Did Smoke run because he was warned? Is the affiliate hiding because he knows what's coming? And most importantly, is the investor about to be exposed publicly? Or will 50 Cent choose to reveal everything himself? Because one thing is certain. This didn't start with King Harris. And it definitely isn't ending with him either. It's only just beginning. And just when it seemed like the situation couldn't spiral any further, the internet got something even more unsettling. A second leak. Not a repost, not a rumor, a new clip. This time clearer, shorter, more deliberate. King Harris on camera again, but not laughing this time. Not joking, not performing. He looks drained, nervous, like someone who finally realized the weight of what's unfolding around him. And in the background, a voice, barely audible, says something that instantly sets social media on fire. Once this drops, nobody can walk it back. No explanation, no context, just that. Within minutes, theories exploded again. Was it Smoke's voice before he disappeared? Was it the affiliate trying to regain control? Or was it the mysterious third investor finally speaking directly through the chaos? Because at this point, nobody was sure who was controlling what anymore. Even inside the industry, panic started to spread. People, close to the situation, reportedly began distancing themselves publicly. Old posts were deleted. Associations were scrubbed. Quiet phone calls were made between managers, lawyers, and executives who suddenly wanted nothing to do with the situation. And then came the most dangerous shift of all. Silence from the people who used to talk the most. Blogs stopped naming suspects confidently. Commentary pages started using vague language. Even the usual loud voices in hip-hop media began choosing words carefully, like they were no longer reporting a story, but walking around something explosive. Because now everyone understood the same thing. Whoever that third figure is, they are not reacting emotionally. They are managing consequences. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, 50 Cent's camp reportedly wasn't celebrating, wasn't posting, wasn't engaging in any of the noise. They were building, quietly collecting every fragment, every message, every payment trail, every connection between Smoke, the affiliate, and the unseen investor. Not for content, for structure, for something bigger than social media. And that's what made it terrifying. Because when 50 Cent is loud, it's entertainment. But when he goes quiet and starts organizing evidence, people in the industry know what that usually means. The story is already over, and the cleanup is about to begin. Then a new twist hit the timeline. A burner account posted just 4 words. He was never alone. No name, no clarification, no follow-up. But it was enough. Enough to reignite everything. Enough to drag the entire narrative back into chaos. Because now people weren't just asking who the third mastermind was. They were asking something worse. How many people were actually involved from the beginning? And that question changed the tone of everything. What was once seen as a reckless situation around a celebrity's son had now evolved into something the internet couldn't comfortably categorize anymore. Not a feud, not a stunt, not even a setup, but a layered operation with moving parts, some visible, some vanished, and some still completely unknown. And in the middle of it all, King Harris remained the only constant face on camera, while everyone else either disappeared or went silent. Then, at the very end of the day, just when the internet started to slow down again, another message appeared. This one wasn't from a burner. It was from an account that had never posted before. One line, and it changed the temperature instantly. You've only seen the beginning version. And that's where everything pauses again. Because now the fear isn't about what has already been revealed. It's about what version comes next.